Hey guys, thank you for the support on the SHINY Miraidon video. It's only fair to show off SHINY Miraidon. How you guys doing? I've got a Clodsire versus Groudon. Now, Groudon tells me, the Groudon lead tells me that it probably is a Stealth Rock lead. Today we're going to be using a Sun team. If you missed the video yesterday, that's fine. I've got another SHINY Miraidon team right here with Fluttermane, Great Tusk, and Ho-Oh, all the backbone and supporters of the Sunlight. My opponent has a very, very interesting Miraidon team. We've just got to be very, very careful. I do have a couple of things for Miraidon in the form of like Clodsire, and the Arceus is Terra Ground. And I have a couple other things, but we'll get into it as we go. I'm going to go into Great Tusk, and he, I guess, is just on point here. Thinking that he has that lead Groudon to set up the Stealth Rocks and such, and then I might want to Rapid Spin. He throws this thing in my face. And what this tells me is that, okay, the Sunlight is up, so the best thing that he would have to hit Ho-Oh would be a Water move. We'll then also try to see if he's maybe like Wise Glasses, Life Orb, or anything like that. That information will be crucial in trying to figure out how to best deal with Iron Bundle. This Freeze Dry comes through. Looking at this offensive damage and not seeing a Life Orb, I'm almost wondering if this is Scarfed. I'm not 100% sure. I do have a fully bulky, specially defensive Ho-Oh. And I pretty much can just Sacred Fire anything I want for free. Nothing on his team wants to take it whatsoever. We'll see on this next turn if he goes for like Flip Turn or Hydro Pump. I know he won't go for Hydro most likely since the sun is beating down on the battlefield. Pretty sure he'll just stick to Freeze Dry. Seeing Freeze Dry pretty much confirms my suspicions that I do believe he is Scarf. And here's a Sacred Fire in the sun. Does a ton of damage. About 75-80% damage. And then after the Burn Tip, it is just really, really nice to wear down the Iron Bundle. Now, that being said, my Ho-Oh does have a Grass Terra type for Miraidon. But the Draco Meteor could still come through as well. And I have seen Miraidon do things in regulations that Miraidon should not be capable of doing. It kind of reminds me back of like in Black and White, where I was like the only kid on the block that thought Zekrom wasn't really that broken. And I thought Ferrothorn checked it so well that it would be allowed in like OU. Yeah, I'm crazy like that. But as long as Ho-Oh is sitting here with heavy duty boots, I can just recover stall this thing to oblivion. And I imagine once I get like a layer of spikes up or something like that, and considering Iron Bundle has no recovery options whatsoever, and I didn't see any kind of Healing Wish supporter, this damage is going to be crucial. So I just go for a Brave Bird, thinking that he might want to swap out and preserve Iron Bundle, since it is a really fast sweeper, especially if it's Choice Scarf or later in the battle. He determines that that is not the way he wants to do things, and I guess this Iron Bundle wasn't helpful to him, so it goes down without a fight as now the Miraidon comes in. And I'm thinking, oh crap, okay, there is an Electro Drift with my name written all over it, and while I do have max special defense, I really don't want to test the electrical power of Miraidon boosted under electrical terrain. Yeah, I'm just not interested in that. A lot of these are choice specs. I know there was a regulation in which choice specs Miraidon was everywhere. And I'm pretty sure in Terrestrial Crescendo, it's going to be the same case scenario. So we'll see in a couple days when we get into that. We are definitely playing in Terrestrial Crescendo, by the way. I decided to go to Clodsire. I am immune to the Electro Drift. I'm pretty sure his coverage move will come out now. If it's Dazzling Gleam, I can definitely take it. The only thing I would be worried about is like Specs Draco Meteor. But the thing about it is, I highly doubt he'll stay in, just because I have the Toxic to threaten him with. So he's not interested in taking all that residual damage. He goes out of Tentacrozma, which I saw from Team Preview is Duskmane. So that is his answer to be able to take Toxic from my Clodsire. Now, here, I definitely should have swapped out. There's no reason under the sun I should have stayed in here. I know Necrozma carry Earthquake. It's a very standard thing. And I pay for it with a ton of damage. However, I will say the Spikes chip is so relevant in this battle that it honestly might be worth losing Clodsire here. Even if I don't lose him and I just lose a lot of HP, and use them later in the battle, I would say it's kind of worth it, actually. I don't have the ability to get more health back other than recovering later on, so I do have to swap out. I'm at 119 HP, but we will see. So I'm going to go out into Ho-Oh. I pretty much hard-checked Dustmane across. My opponent is so brilliant. Going for a knockoff here to knock off my heavy-duty boots. Now Ho-Oh is not near as safe. I was like, oh crap, now Stealth Rocks really, really hurt. Remember, I was just talking about that Spikes chip. I was thinking here, offensively, I see knockoff being the best thing he probably has to hit me with, seeing that I've seen Earthquake, and I know these things carry Sunsteel Strike. So I definitely am just going to go ahead and we'll win this thing out. I am hoping that he won't try to Morning Sun up on me. He knows for a fact that I could have just gone for a Sacred Fire, but I value the chip damage on his team more than I do knocking out Dustmane Necrozma. That being said, though, he really doesn't have a switch in for a Sun-boosted Sacred Fire. Arceus Ground is, or Arceus Rock, I cannot tell. I do not want to tempt fate. That is one thing, too. Like, even though with my speed tiers, I have never, ever been able to pay attention to coloration enough with Arceus. Have you guys ever struggled figuring out what types Arceus is? Let me know in the comment section down below. I get a crit Sacred Fire, and that crit Sacred Fire tells me this thing is very, very, very bulky. We don't have the Sun, but that means that it would have done abysmally nothing. And the fact that he set up Stealth Rocks, I'm thinking Judgment Rock, something like that is coming my way. And he withdraws the Arceus. I'm not sure why. Oh, to go into Miraidon. I guess to take a Sacred Fire? I mean, that was really dangerous. Well, no. I'm sorry. I'm thinking that Ho-Oh has a Dragon-type attack. I don't know where I'm at. Sacred Fire without Sun Boost doesn't do anything to Miraidon. However, that Burn Chip is going to be so important, especially with that Spike's residual damage that he swapped in on. That is just fantastic to help wear down one of the biggest threats ever. Now, remember how I said my Clodsire is pretty much dead and gone? Whatever coverage move he has, now that he has Stealth Rocks up to help chip my team, Clodsire is really, really low. Low enough that probably 2 Dazzling Gleams plus Stealth Rocks will actually probably kill from an offensive Miraidon boosted on the Electric Terrain. And what do we go for? Draco Meteor. And he doesn't miss, so Clodsire goes down. The only benefit to that is now that his special attack is lowered, once my Koraidon comes in and gets the Sun back up, Fluttermane can outspeed Miraidon and take it down that way as well. However, you guys know how powerful Miraidon is. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get that Shiny Showdown on the field. Shiny Koraidon glistening in the sun, just like it did last battle. And then, of course, we have the Miraidon on the other side. So we're going to send our Ancient Pulse into an absolute frenzy here. And I don't know what I want to go for. Probably just Choice Banded Collision Course. This is actually a Choice Banded Koraidon. But I hate to be the bearer of the bad news to you guys. But just because we're doing good right now, things are about to go really downhill. I guess my opponent thinks I'm Choice Scarf, the way that I brought in Koraidon. So he goes out to Arceus, either Rock or Ground. And the fact of how bulky that it took a Sacred Fire, I guess he's thinking it could take maybe an offensive attack, like a Dragon Claw or something from Koraidon. But it's chipped down enough to the point after Spike's Residual that there's no way that it's going to live that, even with max bulk or anything like that. He told me after the battle that it was actually just bulky, speedy Arceus, and it was Arceus Ground. I could not tell between Rock and Ground. I was scared of both forms, especially with Ho-Oh losing heavy-duty moves. Speaking of Ground, he brings in Groudon, which I'm assuming is now physically defensive. The fact that I saw that his Arceus was able to set up the Stealth Rocks, this is probably a special or physically defensive Groudon, and it does not take Choice Banded Collision Course. He goes for the Gambit of the Thunder Wave, and it pays off big, getting one of my most strong Pokemon paralyzed. Man, Choice Banded Koraidon paralyzed. This is a bad day. It was supposed to be a bright, sunshiny day for me. I was in the lead, things were going good, and now they're not. I do still have Bold Arceus Water, who can take whatever from Groudon that it wants to go for. Precipice Blades, Thunder Waves, whatever. This, I actually really liked bulky Arceus Water back in the day. Physically bold, a bold max defense, max HP, and then of course Calm Mind with like Judgment Water, Ice Beam, stuff like that. Possibly Bolt Beam coverage with Thunderbolt and then recover. Even without Calm Mind, it's still really good. But I do like Calm Mind, Judgment, and Ice Beam as my attacks, and then recover for everything else. Now, seeing the Precipice Blades damage, I know it doesn't do a whole lot. I can just go for an Ice Beam on the Groudon. I know from this range, even without Calm Mind, Groudon does not have the special defense needed to stomach an Ice Beam even at this range. And Spike's Tip guarantees it if he swaps out. So he just decided to swap out, and this time he decides to go into Ting Lu. I was wondering when we were going to see this thing. Now, because the sun is up, my boosted Judgment will not be strong enough. Speaking of Judgment, can you guys render Judgment on this video? Subscribe if you like the content. Rate, comment, subscribe in the comment section down below. And let me know about that Arceus question that I asked you guys. I'm super curious of your responses. Alright, so it stomachs an Ice Beam super well, and we can't freeze it because we're in the sun. This is horrible. I'm so used to being on this side of the battle, but this is actually his footage, so I'm actually on the other side. I am so sorry about that. Oh, man. We're going to get it together, I promise. Oh, no, I am in the Gengar shirt. My bad. Alright, Flutterman is going to get dragged out. We're going to get the Photosynthesis boost, which is going to heighten our speed. But, guess what? The harsh sunlight fades. So we're just going to lose that speed. So we no longer outspeed Miraidon. What a sad day. Now, this particular situation, I have Moonblast, and I also have Stab Shadow Ball. Stab Shadow Ball, pretty much, if I would say to hit KO's Duskmane Necrozma, unless perhaps it is invested in special defense, which this one doesn't seem to be. It seems to be a standard physically defensive set, but doesn't have Rocky Helmet, thank God. But Ting Lu stays in on a Moonblast and misses a Ruination, so that works out. So I was like, okay, fine. If you want to stay in on a Moonblast and try to go for a Ruination instead of just hard swapping. But to be fair, I don't know if Moonblast plus Shadow Ball would have taken down Duskmane. Duskmane could have retaliated with a Sunsteel Strike and taken me out. Of course, Ting Lu doesn't take any damage at all from a Shadow Ball. And here comes that Ruination right there. That is not good at all. He still has that Miraidon lurking around, and I no longer have Clodsire to take its hits. And everything that I have to take Miraidon is being worn down. The only benefit and good thing in this situation is that Miraidon is burned. So it is going to be gradually worn down by that burn. And in that case scenario, by being worn down by that burn, I'm going to be able to handle my business here. One Shadow Ball takes it down to half. It looks like half, maybe a couple more points. So it looks like I will be able to take it out here. Hopefully, maybe. I don't want to get Sunsteel Strike. Yes, Necrozma goes down. Very, very nice. I know for a fact Miraidon is most likely going to come in. I don't have the Sun Boost, so my thought process is okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Koraidon. By triggering the Harsh Sunlight, I then re-trigger Photosynthesis, which means I then outspeed Miraidon with Fluttermane. And that is kind of what I need to do here. And the fact that he is not scared of this thing and uses the opportunity. I'm looking at my team and I'm like, nothing takes boosted hits from Miraidon. If Miraidon was not burned, I would lose right here, right now. Because I assume even with Draco Meteor's special attack drops, being able to Calm Mind those back up would spell doom for me. Now, I have not used my Terra, so I could technically go into Arceus Water which is a psycho play, if I may say so myself, because this thing could just Electro Drift me away, but instead sets up a Calm Mind on my Switch. So I could Terra Ground right here. And the fact that I just threw in this water type as a waterlogged magnet tells him that I have some kind of way to take this Electro Drift. Whether it's ground type, whether it's dragon type, whether it is some Terra defensive type to take this hit. And I know he knows that because then he can just go for a Draco Meteor. So, predicting that, I'm going to go to Miraidon if he predicts my bluff to bluff and goes for Electro Drift anyway and getting Miraidon. But I have a question for you guys. How much do you think Calm Mind boosted Electro Drift does to something that resists it? I have 299 HP. Here we go. We're going to go into a frenzy. Here comes an Electro Drift. How much do we take from this? Holy crap! Oh, he didn't even crit me. And he nearly takes me out in one hit? That is insane. Well, now he just forces me into a gambit. Because if I stay in, I die. If I swap out and come back on Stealth Rocks, I also die. Which forces me to go into Flutter Mane, or whatever Pokemon that I want to go into to die. I could go into Great Tusk, but I figure he's just going to go for Draco Meteor. What does he go for? Electro Drift. So predicting him to go for Draco Meteor, predicting for me to go to Great Tusk, he just stays in with another Electro Drift and drops my Flutter Mane. No respect for a threat. The fact you did that much to Miraidon and the fact Miraidon was paralyzed put me in a really, really nasty gambit. Because yeah, I could have gone to Great Tusk, could have gone back to Flutter Mane predicting Electro Drift and got killed with an Electro Drift on the Switch, or just got bodied by a +1 Draco Meteor. Because I'm physically defensive, so I cannot take that. Now we're in a situation where Ho-Oh is going to take so much damage from Stealth Rocks that I'm going to go down. But luckily the Life Orb recoil put this thing in its place enough that we could get into a winning situation. Now, I totally forgot when I threw this Miraidon back out about the Stealth Rocks, even though I was just talking about those Stealth Rocks. And even though Ting-Lu gets hit by spikes, he doesn't have to deal with the likes of my Miraidon. Now, Arceus Water at some point can come in, but again, I can't freeze him with Ice Beam because of the sun, which I set up that sun to try to help my Flutter Mane get into a gambit against the Miraidon. I can't freeze the Ting-Lu, and I can't kill the Ting-Lu. So I decided to go for Judgment, and Ting-Lu takes it and goes for a Whirlwind. So now I have to deal with more Stealth Rock switch-ins. Why won't these Pokemon just die? And now that brings in my Ho-Oh no, all of my health, 304 down to 97. Yes, I can knock out the Ting-Lu if I so wish. But I hate to tell you guys, it's not over. Not at all. If I miss Sacred Fire and he Whirlwinds, then Ho-Oh dies to Stealth Rocks. That's the situation we're in. Luckily, we do not miss Sacred Fire. We incinerate this thing and burn it to Hades. Long and be gone. Get out of here, Ting-Lu. You may be shiny, but you need to leave the building. I'm sorry. You are no longer welcome here. And he goes to Groudon. Okay? So, the thing about this that's really cool is how he gets around this entire play. Because my thought process was, and I don't know how I saw this coming, but he has not Terra'd yet. He has the sun up. I've got a physically defensive Great Tusk. What would you do in this situation? You would predict my Sacred Fire and the Great Tusk and take advantage of the sunlight. The final play of this game, my opponent is going to do the unthinkable and terrestrialize the Groudon into a fire type. I saw this and my heart dropped. That means Ho-Oh would have been forced to take Stealth Rock damage. Oh, and it gets even better. Look at how much Lava Plume does. in the sun. Yeah. Oh, it gets even better. He gets the burn. Oh, and after the battle, he also outspeeds Great Tusk. So he 2-hit KOs Great Tusk. He beats Ho-Oh because he's physically defensive. Gets enough leftovers recovery that he can take whatever hit from me. Okay? It's fire type. It's in the sunlight. And I now cannot win at all. Arceus would take too much damage. And I don't think I can do enough to physically defensive Groudon. Now that he is a fire type, I can't Ice Beam him for a lot of damage. Ho-Oh, even with Regenerator, would almost go down and would be forced into a really nasty 1v1. And Great Tusk goes down to the Lava Plume. So I barely scraped this one out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.